Good afternoon and good morning. Welcome to Kodiak Technologies webinar, where we're talking about our hybrid electric snowblower prototype. My name's Pete Costello. I'll serve as your host. And here's the agenda for today's webinar. We're going to do an introduction of myself and Mark Manning. We're going to talk about the Kodiak Tech solution. We're going to talk about airport electrification, touch on the overview of the FAA grant programs, which some of you may have joined us for our previous webinar. It was all about the FAA grants, but we'll reiterate some of the points from that. And then, of course, we'll have opportunities for Q&A and then closing remarks from Mark and myself. Please, as we're going through, type your questions in the Q&A feature of this Teams webinar. And thank you for joining us. I'm Pete Costello. I serve as Director of Airport Operations for Kodiak Tech, working with airports, DOTs, and other folks that are interested in this technology. Our primary speaker today is Mark Manning. He serves as CEO of Kodiak Tech, so he knows everything about Kodiak Tech inside and out. And speaking of the prototype, this is what we're going to be talking about today. Revolutionary, innovative approach to removing snow from airport runways, from mountain passes out in the wild. We'll talk about different applications and different configurations of the snowblower. The prototype that we're talking about is a hybrid, so it's a diesel engine and electric, so it's a hybrid diesel electric. And with that, we'll start talking about the Kodiak solution. I'll hand the floor over to Mark Manning. Mark, the floor is yours.
So the Kodiak Tech solution is made through a partnership with Chang Robotics. It's an engineering firm that specializes in advanced manufacturing, disruptive technologies, and robotics. They were recently named the best workplace, one of the best workplaces for innovators by Fast Company. And then we're working with Kodiak America, which is an incumbent design, is what we're basing our equipment off of. They've been in operation since 1971. They've been selling snow removal equipment to a wide range of DOTs, national parks, ski resorts, and airports. They have 40 airport customers already as clients and 8 countries. And we've partnered with Roush. They're a very well-known company in the engineering side. They do professional engineering and system integration for aerospace, automotive, defense, renewable energy. And they have done a lot of conversions from internal combustion engines to green power trains, much like we're doing now. Where our engine supplier is Fiat Powertrain, very well known in the industry. And then our battery supplier is American Battery Solutions. They were recently acquired by Komatsu. They have facilities in Ohio and Michigan. Rouse is also in Michigan, Kodiak's in Idaho, and then Chang Robotics is based in Florida. So through that combination, we've been able to create this company and create a solution that will fit the needs of all the various customers that Kodiak America was also doing. And the solution also allows for a multi-purpose solution that the airports and our customers could utilize. So we've got 3 powertrain variants. Our first prototype is the plug-in hybrid. The reason we did this is it's a 1-for-1 replacement of the current version, which I'll show on the next slide. It's 400 kilowatts hour of battery. You do not need charging infrastructure to deploy this. It's only required if you want to do vehicle to grid or you want to have additional operating energy savings. So it's going to be quicker to more cost effective to charge it versus fueling it with diesel. It will have zero emission operation for about 2+ hours, duty cycle dependent, could be more, could be a little bit less. We got a battery electric version, which since we're not having to use the diesel engine, we can put about 1 megawatt of battery on it. This is about 4 hours of operations without opportunity charging. We expect with opportunity charging, you can utilize it, the full day operation, much like you do the current diesel and the plug-in hybrid. Charging infrastructure is required, but we'll talk a little bit about the various options you can do for a quick, effective solution, and one that you would utilize for more for future down the line. Then we've got the fuel cell variant, which is really the same thing. It's a one-for-one replacement of the dual engine version, right? Because you can operate it all day. The main thing you would need is hydrogen fueling infrastructure. And much like the battery electric and plug-in hybrid, this is also allows you to utilize it for vehicle to grid or of operational energy savings as well, because electricity tends to be cheaper than hydrogen. So here's what the Kodiak EV solution looks like, right? So you've got on the left side, you have the current dual engine variant of the vehicle. We've gotten rid of the blower attachment that Pete showed on that first slide, just for sizing. But that PTO, which is in the front, can drive the blower, much like the current system does. So there's a blower. The way the dual engine works is there's actually two engines. There's a blower engine that is specifically used to remove the snow from the airport tarmac or the DOT, etc. And then there's a chassis engine. So between those two, you've got 1,000+ horsepower of engine. And with our versions that are the plug-in hybrid, the battery electric, etc., if you're doing a plug-in hybrid, we only have one range extender, still a diesel engine, but it's not being used to drive anything. It's used to charge the battery. That's the reason it's called a range extender. So the big thing is that you're going to get 60% improvement in fuel economy. You're going to get reduced maintenance cost, and this is 50%. This is because you have one less engine to maintain. You have less moving parts because you're replacing both electrical systems, and you've also have reduction in hydraulics. The hydraulics we know is an issue in the industry, and we're reducing those to make it more cost effective. Also, you should have higher uptime as well with this equipment. So what's a benefit? So we've heard some clients say, hey, well, when this thing's not being used during snow, right? Which obviously winter necessarily not every day. What can we do with the equipment? Well, now that we've got the electrical system on, and in conjunction with either a vehicle to grid or extra components on the vehicle, you actually have a portable power gen, right? It can be very similar to the Cummins power gen on the left side, or the Moxion, which is a completely zero emission battery storage, or it can also be a hydrogen version with our hydrogens. So this allows you to use it for energy backup, especially during the summer months, anytime it's not snowing, allows you to do peak shaving so you can reduce your electricity costs. And also it just allows you to do a microgrid. So that's going to be important as your airport becomes more electrified. It will allow you to potentially reduce the cost of electrical infrastructure and also have more resiliency during months where the snow removal is not being used. So here's our electric powertrain, just so you can see what it looks like. So that hybrid generator, that will go away with the full electric. That will just be all batteries where that's at. So what we have is the front end tooling, which is where the blower is, and it's got a shaft that goes off to it and then operates the blower motor. You got the batteries on the left. You see how they're contained. These are liquid cooled batteries. That means you don't have to worry about them during cold operations or anything like that. So the batteries won't have any impact. Obviously, if it gets super cold, the range could be infected. Drive motor. That drive motor is it's a 4-wheel drive. It allows it to be. It's a direct drive. So there's one engine or one motor propelling both the axles. And then there's the hybrid generator, which is purely used to help operate the vehicle or the engine at the best fuel economy. That way it goes directly to energy or electricity. So here's the front end tooling. Now, we've reduced a lot of the hydraulics, and now what's going on is that front end tooling can actually be directly driven off that motor that you saw on the previous page. Obviously, this helps with complexity. It helps you in the future. You could potentially change off that front end tooling to other additional equipment that you may need for your operations when it's not snowing. You could do the brush, you could do the plow in the front, or it could be anything else that you may see fit. So the other thing that we have on this is we have patented SnowFlow sensors. And this basically allows us to, and this helps with fuel economy, right? It also helps you understand how much snow you're removing in the operation. So it'll automatically understand how you adjust the loading of that front end to blow more or less depending on how much snow is actually being faced by the equipment. The other thing is now you have snow performance telematics, so you'll be able to know, hey, on this day this year, this is what the snow pack looked like and things like that, which could make you have a better operation in the future and also help you understand if it's snowing more or less this year than previous years. And so there's multiple charging infrastructures that you can actually do based off how your fleet size and your site constraints. So when I was, I led bus engineering at LA Metro. One of the things that we deployed was this portable charging system for pilot and maintenance operations, right? It's a pretty quick, effective solution. If you have welding plugs or lifts in your operation or your building right now, you can use the same plug. Might be small, electrical upgrades, $1,000 or $2,000 that you would have to use to be able to give that portable charger, which that one right there is 50 kilowatts. They can go up to 60 kilowatts. Obviously, not ideal for, like a big operations. It's really good for testing, so you can test the equipment out. There's also the one-to-one chargers, right? So you put in one of these chargers for every one of the equipments. You have redundancy, a little bit cheaper install on those. And then the more advanced solution is the dynamic charging, which is on the right. This is what's being used in large fleet operators, such as LA Metro and Chicago when I was there. Is basically you have this equipment to where this charging cabinet that you see on the bottom right is 180 kilowatts. And it can dynamically provide power based off each vehicle's power needs or when it needs to be deployed next. So you can either have 180 at one of the outlets, you can have 120 and 60 at one of the outlets, or you can have 60 at all the outlets. Same thing goes if you're going vehicle to grid. You can, put the energy back to the grid based off what makes the most sense for your operations and makes most sense for cost savings or microgrid needs. And the big thing to note is our chargers are using the same charging adapter that a Chevy Bolt would use or any of your other equipment as well. So it's multi-use. It is not just for our machine. And so for hydrogen infrastructure, this one, the cost could vary depending on how big of a solution you have. You can do the gaseous all the way to the left. You can do liquid delivery, or you can, if you're doing a microgrid like some airports you're looking at, you can make some of the power on your site as well. All depends on what makes the most sense for your operation, based off your energy consumption, your resiliency needs, etc. So for airport electrification, this is one of the things that we want to highlight. As you saw, our vehicle can be used for vehicle to grid. This is one of the things that makes it stand out. And also this can be used in any other operation, right? Where if you've got a building that you don't want to buy a portable Cummins genset or something like that, and you need it only in the summer or when it's not snowing, this is where our equipment can help add resiliency. And it also, you're buying one equipment that can serve multiple purposes. So I used to work for Jacobs, and Jacobs did this study you can see on the web. And the web, and what it's showing is that this shows two different airports, Denver and Minneapolis, St. Paul. So currently right now, both of them are around 50 megawatts of power, right? So roughly one skyscraper is about 15 megawatts to give you a good scope. As you can see there, they have a large college campus, is 40 megawatts, up to 250 megawatts for a large amusement park, which is Disney World. So you're seeing, because of the requirements needed for the various things, heating, electrification, just airport expansion, the current peak power and future EVs and ground support equipment, you can see that their power is going up from, somewhere between 4 and 5 times as much. If you look in the center, you'll see a new feeder line, substations, and transformer line, how long it's going to take to get there. My experience is that I had to put in a new substation. It was going to take me 44 months, almost 4 years to put that in, and it was going to cost me $20 million. So with our solution, we can allow you to do that much quicker and you'll have a battery, a battery energy storage for helping resiliency and whatnot. This is showing what our equipment can do, right? It can be sold back to the grid, in terms of energy, right? So you might be able to save money on your electricity bill, or you can provide the energy back to your airport operations, right? So 10 plug-in hybrids, the diesel hybrids, you're going to have 4 megawatts of battery energy storage. Plus, you're going to have the diesel power to back it up or charge it as you need to, right? You're going to have the 10 EV variants. They're going to be about 10 megawatts of battery energy storage. How long that lasts, depending on what kind of energy discharge you want. And then 10 fuel cells. So that's zero emission, throughout the operation, right? You get 4 megawatts of battery energy storage, roughly, and then you're going to get onboard energy power as well. So that's a completely zero emission. Could be 24/7 operations on that, depending on how much hydrogen you're able to do. So why would you go this solution, right? We have, obviously our equipment's a little more expensive because of higher tech, but like every other equipment. But as with all the other green power, powertrain solutions, we are less to operate, right? So we offer a 50%, as I said before, we're losing there's one less engine to have to maintain. You're going to have also, less hydraulics. You're going to have an easier mechanical system. And you're probably going to save money because you're going to have higher uptime as well, right? So you're going to get about a 50% reduction in maintenance. Obviously, this is subject to how much you operate it, 50%. And you can see that you're getting about a $1 million cost savings on the plug-in hybrid. We're also assuming you're selling some of this on the energy savings. You'll see that fuel is low, right? We're assuming you're selling some of that energy back as part of the vehicle to grid for peak shaving. Obviously, that is depending on how your electricity costs are. And then the full EV, same thing. You're going to be able to sell that fuel back. It's cheaper because electric costs are going to be cheaper in diesel in a majority of the cases. So we can always, if you have any questions on that, we can always go over with you with any of the clients. So there's 3 airport grants that you can utilize to kind of go after this funding. There's the Airport Improvement Program. There's the Voluntary Air Low Emissions Program and the Zero Emission Vehicle and Infrastructure. The reason we were trying, one of the things we want to highlight is November 1st, right? On those 2 requirements, we're willing to help you on those. Those particular grants are a very light lift compared to other grants that I've done before, and we're willing to help you and support you because our equipment will be the first snow removal equipment that's actually available for that. This kind of just is like a highlight of those 3 programs, right? So there's been a large amount of airport improvement grants provided since 2005. You can see snow removal equipment has been funded at a pretty significant pace since 2005. Last year there was 60 million. It requires 10 to 25% local match, and its applications are due April 1st based off last year. The VAIL, obviously, VAIL and the zero emission, there's been 0 for snow removal equipment because we're the first to exist. And you can see how much the local match ends up being somewhere between 16 and 25%, which still makes us cost effective on the capital cost. And you can see what the local match ends up being for fiscal year 23. The VAIL program, the big key for that is it allows you to generate airport emission reduction credits. The base cost is not eligible, but we can help you figure that out and figure out that solution. The zero emission, the base costs are included. And both of those are November 1st. The zero emission is only available for our hydrogen and our EV solution. The VAIL is available for all 3 solutions. So this kind of shows you what that funding can do, right? You've got a traditional dual engine one is about $875,000. The VAIL match will buy that down to cost parity of a plug-in for both the EV and the plug-in hybrid and the fuel cell variant that's on here. And then there's the VAIL, then there's the zero emission one, which ends up buying it down even more on the zero emission. So it's about 10 to 15% of the cost. And because we're safety sensitive equipment as well, the base cost can be the airport improvement program that we were talking about before can help you on the cost of the base cost. There's also other additional things we can do to help on this. We can offer battery leasing or anything else to help on that because obviously with the total cost of ownership, it's going to be a more cost effective solution for you. And we are done and we're open for questions.
Lane, I think there's some questions in the Q&A, and if anybody else has questions, please continue to add to the Q&A. Would you read one of them out, please, Lane?
Yes, some questions. First one, how easy is it to deploy the portable power chargers?
I think I deployed the first one in basically a day. It was literally just getting the connector and plugging it into the welding port in my first deployment. It could take you maybe a week or two if you have to do some electrical upgrades, but very simple, very quick.
Great, next question. How will the Kodiak Tech EV snowblower be Buy American compliant? Or sorry, will the Kodiak Tech be Buy American compliant?
It will be Buy American compliant. Yes, it'll meet the requirements for FAA.
Great. Can you please tell us more about remote operations for a DOT in mountain passes?
So for the DOTs and remote mountain passes, depending on what your your charging solution looks out like that, you're probably going to be going to either our plug-in hybrid variant, right? Because it's a one-for-one drop-in. You might also consider the hydrogen as well. That depends on if you have hydrogen infrastructure nearby, which with the hydrogen hubs that are happening by the DOE, there should be a lot of hydrogen hubs and infrastructure definitely available by 2030, if not sooner.
Great. Another question. For the dual usage, what is the additional cost I would pay for the portable gen sets?
So for a 275 kilowatt gen set, which is what we were pretty much the equivalent to on peak output, you're spending about $200,000 on that equivalent. So if you think about our cost, you're going to be saving potentially $200,000. The main thing that you would need to do, as I mentioned before, is you have to put in a V2G charger, right? Or there's some additional equipment that we could put on the vehicle to make it to where you don't need the V2G charger.
Next question. Can you please tell us more about remote operations? Oh, I already read that one. So sorry. What is the cost and timeline to upgrade a substation from your experience?
I mentioned this before, but it is very dependent on your utility, and it can take a long time. Some of the utilities require you to do a method of service study, before you figure out, you should do a method of service study before you even go out and look at what upgrades you need, so you can understand the best method. My experience, that can take 6 months to a year just to do that. And then obviously from there, it could be 5 to 7 years to do your electrical upgrades. So that's where we can help you reduce that time frame in buying our equipment, 6 months to a year lead time. And with our minimal infrastructure that we could potentially offer, you'd be able to upgrade your power and still be able to, use equipment in the meantime. And it costs about $20 million based off my experience to go from about 5 megawatts to 15 megawatts.
Awesome. With the Kodiak Tech as a grid option, this could help reduce the amount of upgrades needed. Would you say that's true?
That is true.
Fantastic. And one more, how do people go about getting the prototype for their airport for testing?
You could just shoot myself and Pete a note and we'll figure out how to get it to you for testing.
Yeah, I think on that note, I'll add that we're looking to do a roadshow with the prototype. As Mark mentioned, it's being built in Idaho. We have on our calendars for April of 2025 the Buffalo Snow Symposium, where we'll have the prototype there. So it's got to get from Idaho to Buffalo. So if you're along that route, let us know. We'd love to come by and show you the prototype and have your folks and your stakeholders and your partners take a look at it. With that, maybe we'll hold the Q&A. And I think the next slide is the other items that we have in our webinar series that we're planning. We'll talk in further detail about the needs for electrical infrastructure. We touched on that here. Mark mentioned we're very focused on safety. This vehicle is going to be a lot more safe to operate and maintain, as we mentioned. We also, in our product roadmap, are looking to automate these vehicles and talk about implementing them in airport snow operations and DOT operations, talk about the maintenance that will be needed for these vehicles, and lastly in the series, touch on the environmental benefits for these vehicles in snow removal. I think that's it, right? Maybe there's one more slide. Yeah. One of our catchphrases is nothing can stand up to an electrified Kodiak. Please check us out on the web with this QR code. As Mark mentioned, if you need any further information, you're interested in having the prototype at your facility on the roadshow that we have planned, contact Mark or myself. And with that, we'll conclude this webinar and make it available as a recording to everyone who attended and put some snippets out on social media. Appreciate your time and attention today. Mark, thank you so much for walking us through this amazing prototype.
Thank you very much, everybody. Y'all have a great day. And let Pete and myself know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Bye-bye.